Hi, welcome back to another podcast by Raise Your Vibes. This is Miriam Khan. Thank you for tuning in, y'all. So, this particular topic is about the difficulties that people can face in divorce. This is quite a tumultuous episode for some people. It might have trigger warnings, it might have upsetting themes, it might have topics that perhaps does cause anxiety or trauma, or perhaps, things we can relate to, perhaps coming back to us. All of us will know someone, sadly, that has divorced, or merrily, we might say. All of us are in different journeys, when we come to that particular topic. None of us, when we get married, have this expectation that we're going to get divorced in the first place. When we get married, we have these hopes, we have these joys, we have these dreams that the partner we've selected, the partner we're going to be with, is going to be with us for a long time. And I appreciate that in 2021, there is a huge increase in the amount of divorce cases that arise. For many people, they seem to stay together for 2-3 years, or and then divorce. Or there's been situations where perhaps they've been, partners for a long time and then end up getting married and then divorcing quickly. There's all sorts of scenarios that occur. There's not one particular ingredient, not one particular recipe. And in different cultures and different places, the rates of divorce will obviously differ as well, depending on where you are, the age gap, the role expectancy, death expectancy, life expectancy. There are different rates of marriage that you have in different cultures, as I said. Some people, for example, they've been married for 60, 70, 80 years. And nowadays in 2021, that doesn't seem to be the case. Marriages are sort of short-lived. Now, all of us get to a point in those particular relationships where, unfortunately, push comes to shove and certain things happen, certain scenarios happen, certain situations happen where, unfortunately, divorce is the last thing. And there's lots of particular scenarios where that does happen. I can recall being very, very sympathetic to a colleague of mine many years before, where she had discovered that her very ever so loving husband had been, going away on business trips, or so she thought, and was using their sort of like nest egg for retirement money, to sort of have a mistress on the side. And when she discovered the fact that this was the scenario, that this was the real reason as to why he was away all the time, that marriage obviously ended, and it ended in a very difficult way. And despite being very understanding for her, being sympathetic towards her, being empathetic towards her, it's not until you're in your own sort of situation like that where you can really understand what somebody goes through when they're actually getting divorced. Some divorces can be very easy. Two people can platonically, as they've got married, decide platonically that they're going to get divorced, and things are going to be split through the middle. Things are going to be solved easily. They're on mutual terms. They're like friends. They deal with it in a very platonic way, very respectful, and off they go. They're divorced, and it's easy. Now, there are other scenarios where it's not like that at all. You have some situations where there is a power dynamic and a complex between one individual and the other, and you are divorcing for a variety of reasons. It could be that somebody's had an affair, somebody's lied, somebody's cheated, somebody has betrayed your trust, somebody is not a good parent, somebody is abusive, somebody is toxic, somebody is a narcissist. Maybe there is severe abuse in that relationship, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. Maybe it's financial abuse. Perhaps, you both want different things. There are thousands of reasons why people divorce. But when it gets to a situation where one person is trying their hardest to be free and the other individual basically is like a leech and sucking them dry and not letting them go, that's when things get very, very difficult. And what makes it hard in a divorce is that the families on both sides of the people involved, sometimes will take sides, and sometimes will dominate, and sometimes will make it very, very difficult for you to leave, especially in this day and age. And majority of the time, it seems to be, in my experience, you might differ from my opinion, But from the people that I've counselled, it seems to be that the female is the one that suffers the most. I've yet to come across a male on the other counterpart. I do appreciate it happens, okay? But from what I've encountered in my years of counselling, it seems to be the other way around. And the individual has their self-esteem taken away, their confidence taken away, their whole ability to be able to cope by themselves. And, some family members will throw that back in your face as a reminder of why you should not divorce and why you should not separate and why you should go back to that individual even though they're toxic and they're not right for you. A lot of the time, we know that individual isn't right for us. They're not making us happy anymore. We're not at peace with them anymore. If anything, we feel very, very suffocated by them. We feel very, very alienated because they have taken away our liberties, taken away our freedom, taken away the air that we breathe, taken away our whole essence of being, by staying in that sort of toxic relationship. And we don't see it, like I said, until we step away, until we move back. And it's very difficult to move away from somebody like that or something like that as well. It's not easy to do, okay? A lot of these scenarios have situations where, as a female, and as I said, I'm speaking from a female point of view, more often than not, we're the ones that are financially reliant on the other individual. And nowadays in 2021, there is more equality. Of course there is. There are a lot more people that are working for themselves. But majority of the time, the main breadwinner tends to be, stereotypically, the male. And when it comes to divorce situations, there are scenarios where the other person feels obliged to remind you of your contractual rights. And depending on where you are, depending on which country, some of those rights aren't always followed through. Money isn't provided for child support, for example, or clothing, or a roof over your head, or whatever the welfare situation is. And in other scenarios, you'll have it the other way around, where it's actually the female that's the main breadwinner, and it's the female that is the one that's working quite hard and diligently in supporting the male. These are cases that are coming up more and more, but are sort of less spoken of, okay? And in those dynamics, you find that in a divorce case, it's the male that also speaks up and basically wants his, thick slice of bread, as we call it, and wants it toasted on both sides and wants everything given to him and handed on a plate, because there's this expectancy that you will continue to keep providing the life that they've been accustomed to whilst you've been working your butt off, to be frank. Either way, when it comes to those scenarios, it's very, very difficult to let go. It's very difficult to let go and file for divorce in the first place. It's very difficult to maneuver your way through this and separate on amicable terms. One partner will make it very, very difficult for the other, and sometimes it's a case that both partners are making it difficult, as are family members. There is no easy solution, if I'm honest with you, in regards to these situations. Sometimes you have to just walk through that path, and you have to just persevere through that path and take one day at a time. What I will say is it becomes very, very, very hectic. It becomes very unmanageable. It becomes very toxic too, when quite a lot of other people, other factors are involved, and people do take ownership, people do take control, and people do cause havoc and cause scenes, cause mishap, where they feel like they have to intervene on your behalf. And a divorce can leave you very, very unstable. It can leave you in pieces. And you might not be able to cope with the everyday things that are going on. Some people I know struggle daily just to even look after themselves, let alone the children that they might have, And some people are very quick to say, oh, well, it's very lucky that you didn't have children when you're divorcing. It doesn't make it any easier. Of course, it makes it a lot more complex when children are involved. And you have to do the right thing by, giving rights to see the children. You have to make sure that they're fed, make sure that they're clothed, make sure that the other person is providing that allowance or support. So often in cases they're not, and sometimes you're forced to go back and live with that individual who's made your life a living hell, Some families don't support that, they're very quick to judge. So can be friends, friends can be like, oh, well, you should forgive this particular scenario because of this, and this, according to this scripture or according to this dogma. And sometimes we're not looking at the individual, we're not looking at their needs, we're following what we should be doing, but actually we're not preaching from the heart. We're preaching from what we think they should be doing, and it's coming from our ego, and it's coming from control. We're not thinking of the person's happiness. We're not thinking about what is right for them, because leaving a marriage is the most difficult thing you can do. Extremely difficult thing you can do. It's not an easy decision to make, to end something that you thought was going to be a long-term situation, and it was started with love, and unfortunately it doesn't end like that. Okay, it can end with betrayal, it can end with tears, it can end with, injustice. These are just some of the short topics that might crop up. And then in other scenarios, as you're trying to leave that marriage, more toxicity comes around. The individual makes it very, very difficult for you to leave. They are not only controlling the people around you, they're controlling the people that are maybe working for you, like your lawyers. They will try and control people's perception of how you are or how you're not as a parent or as a wife or as a husband. And they will try to give you a bad name. This shows a lot about the other person's understanding of control and ego and toxicity as well. They're not willing to let you go. Now, sometimes that control can be so suffocating, to the point where you've perhaps tried all channels to be peaceful, to be reflective, to be someone that is positive, and you are saying all the right things, doing the right thing, but the other individual is so toxic, they just cannot let you go. This comes down to power, this comes down to control, this comes down to ego. It comes down to the other person's narcissistic tendencies as well. It comes down to greed, ego. I've probably said ego, but it does come down to all those negative aspects. These are not positive attributes. These are negative attributes. And it's unfortunate, isn't it, that in that scenario where we first started out with love, we end with this negativity instead. So much so that you get to a point where the other individual just cannot stand to be near you. Okay? They can't stand to be in the same room as you. They can't stand to be talking to you. They can't stand being or having anything to do with you whatsoever. A case I can think of is a friend of mine who for about 20 years had both of his parents, having to come and visit him at different times of the day for Christmas, having to schedule Christmas appointments, birthday appointments, all at different times. And, it took a funeral for these two people 20 years or so later to be amicable again. Sometimes people can hold on to these grudges when they go through divorce for a long time, and they don't speak, they don't talk to each other, they hold on to that anger, of why this person let me down, this person did this to me, this person, and again, it's that control, isn't it? It's that control, and it's the fear, and it's resentment, and it's the toxicity. And what you haven't done in all that time is move forward, because you're still looking over your past, you're still looking at the back, and you're not allowing your children to live in harmony either, because the family that I mentioned had to, work their way around these two individuals who obviously, had not resolved their issues. And then 20 or so years later, at a funeral, they become best chums again, All of that time could have been avoided. All of that pain and that hurt and that trauma could have been avoided by simply talking it out and talking in a calm way in the first place and burying the ego. And I know that is not an easy thing to do, because it's not. It's not. I myself have gone through divorce, and trust me when I say that you go through this scenario of trying to be the better person, try to be amicable, try to be hospitable to the other person, you try to be fair, and everything gets thrown back in your face, and you see this completely different dynamic and different side to someone you were in love with, someone that you wanted to, give roots to, somebody that you wanted in your life for a long time. You didn't see them exiting, but you do now, and these are things that we have to come to terms with when we're divorcing as well. We see, as I keep saying many, many times, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You do see that through someone that you're divorcing. Other things that you come through is how this toxicity and how this negativity of the divorce impacts those around you. You find people choosing sides, and that can be very hurtful. You lose friends, you lose family, because people take sides with each other. And it's almost like being back at school. You sort of like look at yourself and think, hold on a minute, like, are we back at school here? Obviously we are, because we're treating it as if we're in a school game scenario, almost like, okay, which side do you want to be on for the football team? I'll choose so-and-so and I'll choose so-and-so, And it starts like that. And it can be quite debilitating to see family members torn between right and wrong and choosing different sides. And sometimes you'll have people that just disappear and vanish. And you'll have friends that just basically say, don't want to get involved in this. I'll see you on the other side when the divorce is over. Because they don't want to be involved. They can see that you're going to be upset. You're going to see that you're going to be in heartache. And there are times during divorce where it can be very, very, very difficult. You're banging your head against a brick wall. You're trying to get your lawyers to do something that you want to do. And there are times when the court doesn't approve, or the judges don't approve, or they don't want to seek justice, or they don't want to hear your voice. It's extremely frustrating. Extremely frustrating. And more so when you're in different countries, different cultures, different rules are perhaps applicable other than the ones in your own country. So it makes it more challenging, And even though you are someone who is doing everything the right way and doing things the correct way, sometimes it gets slapped in your face, Somebody will tarnish your name, somebody will tarnish your reputation, and they'll do it for malicious reasons, okay? Divorce does bring out the very, very, very nasty side to other individuals, sometimes, okay? Many people, nowadays, and I was one of them, signed a prenup. And in some cases, those prenups are valid, and you'll find big celebrities, you'll know them yourself, you'll see them on social media. You'll have prenups, saying, I want this and this is what I get, and if we divorce, this is what happens. And then you'll get other very famous cases where the prenup is surrendered and it's void and it's valid, and people are fighting over assets. I'm sure we could think of many, many scenarios where we've seen it on media, television, and social media, where certain celebrities have fought with their other half over the lifestyle that they feel that they're accustomed to, of certain assets that they feel that they're entitled to. And, it becomes a war, a war of weaponry in regards to finances, or a war of time, a war of conflict. And these can be, brought out in a fierce way. And again, money plays a big part of this, doesn't it? Money, possessions. Sometimes it's the ego and it's control as well. And there are very, very different dynamics to that. We are living in very materialistic times where a lot of us are accustomed to living in luxury. And luxury can depend on where you are, where your background is, what you think you're entitled to, what you think you're accustomed to. So these can also vary as well, okay? But all of us will have different aspects of divorce. Some of us come out of it, like I said, unscathed, unhurt. We become friends with our individual, whether that's with our children or not. We're amicable. And then there are other scenarios where, unfortunately, divorce leaves us in pieces. Some people, God bless them, they never ever get over that divorce, that betrayal. They never move forward. They're still living in the past, and they are still torn by that event of the divorce. They're still broken by it. They've not allowed themselves to move forward. And then you have other individuals who, before they've even signed the divorce papers with their partner, they've already started a new relationship, but are very quick to throw shade, which is the modern term, at the other person who isn't doing anything, who's just trying to get through day by day. And this is what I mean. Divorce can bring out the ugliness in some people, It can bring about the real dark side of them that we haven't seen. Personally for me, I was working on myself. I still am working on myself. There's parts of me that I have got to heal. There's parts of me that need to keep growing, and I have to start focusing on loving myself and healing from the situation I've been placed in. which was out of my hands, But each of us have a part to play. Some of us don't look at the healing aspect. We jump from one place to another, or we jump from one relationship to another, or we don't look at self, and we don't look at the aspects of ourselves that caused that divorce in whichever minor way you want to think about it. We do have to hold ourselves accountable for whatever piece of pain we've caused, knowingly or unknowingly, subconsciously, whatever you want to call it. So we have to look at that. We have to look at the deeper side. We have to look at the darker side. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's about taking accountability for those particular actions, and looking at ourselves in the mirror and thinking, okay, what can I do to move forward? What can I do if and when I'm ready for a next relationship? What would I do? Some of us might decide that we're going to stay in solitude, and that's fine. We might prefer our own company to letting another human being hurt us ever again. Divorce can do that to people. It can leave people alienated. It can leave people hurt. It can leave people very betrayed. And it can leave people thinking, I don't want to do this again. I just want to focus on me, and I just want to focus on my heart and my healing. And some people will never ever be ready for a relationship again because they've been hurt too much. But the main thing is looking around you and looking at the people that are there. Instead of just looking at the negative sides, there are some positives. Some people will show you their true colours. True friends will stick by you, and sometimes they're people that really surprise you as well. There are others who will throw lots and lots of shade at you. They'll say, no, you shouldn't divorce. In the eyes of God, you should have stayed married. You've got a child, you've got this financial, tie with them. You've got to stop listening to the naysayers, because they're not in your shoes. They're not in your predicament. They're not in your life. They're not the one making those decisions. They're not the ones financially tied down to certain, things that you've got to pay back. You are, You might be the mother or the father of a child. They don't understand that, you want perhaps harmonious relationship between your children and their father or their mother. It's not one of peace. It's not one of relaxation, but it's one that you've got to strive forward in, and it's one that you've got to try and move forward in, no matter what people think. And we've got to try and move past this sort of scenario where we keep blaming other individuals for our pain. And we have to take that responsibility of ourselves, that we are in charge of us, and we are in charge of healing ourselves after that pain. Some of us might go and have counselling done. Some of us might sit back and think, well, actually, I don't need anything. I'm just going to focus on me right now. Some of us take up hobbies, take up different things that we do to help ourselves get over that. Some of us turn to other particular scenarios, we look at different situations as well. We might not be dealing with the divorce very well. We might have depression. We might end up going to counselling, which is a great thing, to work on your issues. And then there are some of us that just work on those issues quietly alone, and we work on it and we move away and we start again. All of us will be having different experiences of divorce. There's no straight cut one-way system. There isn't. And it's a matter of being open and honest. And I think the other thing that people do as well is they shy away from talking about it because they feel it's something that they should be ashamed of. For a long time, I felt so bad about my particular scenario, and it was because I didn't want my marriage to fail. It was failing, evidently. It was out of my hands. It was failing, but the other person also had their part to play, and they weren't doing that. So it's also about recognizing the fact that someone else has to take ownership of their part in that marriage or breakup or divorce. It can't all be just on one person's shoulders. Like I said, all of us will be looking at divorce in very, very different aspects, different ways. And it's about making sure that you do what's right for you. Don't listen to the naysayers. Don't listen to the people that are full of negativity. Look at the people that are supporting you. Look at the people that are going to help you through this, the people that are going to have your back, the people that are going to be supportive. because, some people will make this a plain, easy sail, and there are some that will make it very, very difficult. And no matter what your journey is in divorce, I wish you the very best, and I hope that you come through the other side like a champ. But, rise above, keep your head held high, keep your wits about you, choose your friends wisely, have people that are kind and caring, and have people that will have your back, because that's not always something that you can do or something that you can rely on. So just take it easy with that one. And, as you're going through divorce, bear in mind that, you will get through it. No matter the situation, no matter the difficulty, no matter the mountains that seem to be ahead of you as you're trying to get your freedom or trying to see your children or whatever the scenario is, trying to get your property back, you will get through the other side. You will. And it's just a matter of time and patience. Wherever you are on your divorce journey, I wish you the best. I'm sure I'm going to be doing another podcast on this topic at another time. But that's all for now. I thank you for tuning in, and I wish you all the best on your healing journeys coming out of divorce. God bless. Blessings. Take care. Thanks for listening.